Hey, this is Warren Redlick. I am here with Jennifer Strahan. We are going to talk about bot and bot rights and artificial intelligence and whether they're going to have rights comparable to human rights. This is going to be a fun conversation. Jennifer is a figure in the Tesla Twitter community, and I'll put a link to her Twitter in the description below. Before we get started, and I should say, are you ready? Let's go. Jennifer, would you please tell the audience a little bit about your background and how you got interested in Tesla, SpaceX, Elon, and bots and artificial intelligence?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer. How did I get interested in Tesla? First of all, my father was an engineer. He was a software and electrical engineer. So I grew up with that background, and he was always teaching me all sorts of things about engineering. So I just had this very inquisitive mind. And then I had a tenant. I'm trying to think, I think it was like 2012. I had a tenant who had a Tesla S and I did not know what it was. And I was like, what is this car? It's gorgeous. You know, he was a plastic surgeon, he was very well off. And so he told me all about the company. And I thought, wow, that sounds really amazing. At this point, my father had already passed. And I thought, like, man, my dad would be really interested in this company. So I started looking into it and I decided to start following it. I told my mom about it, and she was investing in the stock market. At that time, I was still 100% in real estate. I do come from a real estate family. I am a third generation landlord. And so, I was still just all in on real estate. And then COVID happened, and I saw the changes coming in the real estate, uh, not the real estate market, well, the real estate market, because it was really booming, and real estate negotiations are kind of my wheelhouse. Like that's where I really shine. And I could see like, oh, there's really good opportunity to make some money selling off some of our properties. And at the same time, I had noticed that Tesla was really ramping up the rhetoric about full self drive. And I started to think about the full self drive. It was really like 2019 when I was really thinking about full self drive. And then when COVID hit, I said, okay, we're going to take this money and I'm putting it in Tesla. Like I'm selling several properties and we're putting it all in Tesla because this is a great opportunity. Because that is when I realized it's not about the cars. This is not a car company. They're going to solve for perception robotics. That's going to be an enormous game changer. Because right now in manufacturing, here's the problem. You can have manufacturing robots and say they're hammering a nail into a wood board, right? So here comes the wood board and it's got a nail in it and the nail's straight. And they just have to hammer it, the straight nail into the board. Well, if that nail becomes crooked, right now, the way that robots work, it can't perceive the nail is crooked and correct the nail. You have to stop the whole line. A human has to come in, correct the nail, and then start the line again. So you can't take humans out of the equation. And manufacturing robots are very dangerous for humans. There's a lot of problems still with manufacturing robots that we can't fully automate manufacturing. Without fully automating manufacturing, we cannot repatriate manufacturing to the United States. We can't make our own goods. We're still dependent on China and Mexico and other places to make stuff for us. So once the robot can perceive, oh, the nail needs to be righted and it can write the nail, then we can completely automate manufacturing, which is an enormous game changer. Because as you can see, then, if you can repatriate all of our manufacturing, because you can afford at that point to use robots instead of humans, because humans are expensive in many ways, which we're going to discuss in a little bit. When you can do that, and especially if you take the robot plus Tesla Solar and Megapack, so Tesla Energy, when you put those two together, they bring the cost of manufacturing down so much that we can make everything and no longer be dependent on other countries. So, yeah, I do make the argument a lot. Tesla is the most patriotic company that you can invest in. So it's very puzzling when I see like ultra right Republicans talking about how much they hate Tesla and clean energy and everything. And I'm like, but that doesn't serve your purpose in your message of like let's not be dependent on China. Let's not be dependent on foreign oil and stuff like that. So anyway, so that's what's really got me into Tesla was bot before bot was a thing. I just had a feeling like that's what they're going for. And I'm glad that I was really right about it because I did roll the dice with a lot of money and have figures in Tesla. So I'm very happy to say that. It's really a nice feeling because my husband's not even 40 yet. I am. I'm 41. So, and we didn't put everything into Tesla. My entire stock portfolio is in Tesla, but we do still have real estate. So,
So you're a Teslanaire. I'm a Teslanaire. For
mhm.
those who are watching, please check out the Teslanaire T-shirt at elonbits.com. Good opportunity to push that.
Oh, perfect. Yes, I know. We're minting new Teslanaires like every day. I know lately not so much, but man, today has been a good day.
I haven't even been watching. But while I mentioned T-shirts, and before we get more into bot and bot rights, you have a T-shirt project you're working on, Make Babies Not Bombs, and at some point I'm going to make a Make Babies Not Bombs T-shirt. Can you tell the audience about the Make Babies Not Bombs idea?
Yes, and thank you so much for participating in that, Warren. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so I love Elon's message of peace and also bringing awareness of the population decline issue because that is really major. And so I wanted to combine his two messages. I think it's really important that we see peace in Ukraine and that we realize that all the people that are affected there, the Ukrainian people and the Russian people, that they're humans, and they're in a war zone. And the sooner that this war ends, the better for them, for their way of life, for the children that are there right now. So we're doing a T-shirt campaign. But unfortunately, certain platforms that I don't want to name because I don't want this to be taken down don't love the wording. We've had some issues already with,
Really?
yep, yep. So, yeah, Tim from Oracle Invest has already had issues with the wording. They took it down. So, and they're not going to like the other ones either. So, we have the Make Babies Not Bombs t shirt, which is awesome. I actually got mine ordered and it said it shipped. So, we'll see. And then it was like Make Love Not War and Nookie Not Nukes, which
Nookie
I
not
really
nukes.
love. I don't think they're gonna let us say war or nukes because they didn't like the word bombs. We'll find out. But I think he has another t-shirt vendor. We're working on it. And then all the proceeds are gonna be donated to each YouTuber that is participating is gonna donate to a charity of their choice, whether it be to help the children that are there in Ukraine that are affected, or if it is to an anti-war movement. So,
Yeah, I'm
to,
not. I would like to give it to the charity of help Warren find a wife and have more kids, but I think maybe like I'll put it towards a libertarian charity because libertarians are anti-war.
right, which is fantastic. I think that's as Americans, we have to remember that our government has a lot of pull and a lot of say in the world, and that it's of my opinion that we should be promoting peace and we should not
Yeah,
make a business of war.
and libertarians are also pro-baby. We like babies.
Everybody should like, what is there not to like about a baby, honestly?
I don't know that we live in a strange the world that we live in today is not the world I grew up in, and that's just I'm just a cranky old man who thinks it's like you're supposed to like get married and have kids, and apparently that's not the thing anymore.
I know it's odd. So, but
So
I,
let's
yeah.
let's stop talking about Warren's failed love
I,
life.
yes, Warren's babies. Somebody please marry this man and have
Yeah,
babies
no,
with
we're
him.
all right. There's a plan. It's not a good one, but there's a plan. So we wanted to talk. The whole point of this talk was to talk about artificial intelligence,
Yes.
bots as well, but about this question about when, if ever, artificial intelligence reaches a point where some people think it has rights. And you can go back to human history, and we had slaves. And then there was a decision, these are people, they should have rights. Or, women got the right to vote, which like seems blindingly obvious today. I'm not sure anybody should be able to vote in this world, but blindingly obvious that women should have the right to vote, blacks should have the right to vote. There's all these steps in recognition of rights for certain classes of people or objects or whatever we're going to call it. And there's people who there's PETA advocates for animal rights. There's a lot of variety in there, and so there's this question at some point. Artificial intelligence crosses a certain threshold, and some people start to identify with it and see that it's something more than just machine. Am I giving a good description of that? How would you describe this problem or this issue?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's actually a larger issue. So I was thinking about this. What are going to be the big problems in the future, in the next like decade? I think they're already here and we don't realize that they're here. The largest problems are, of course, population decline and then ethics. We have a problem with ethics because we are not talking about ethics. And that is what is holding us back the most. If you look at the full self drive program, right? Elon said something that was very important during the earnings call. He said that FSD is already safer than human drivers. It's already safer than human drivers. They have the data. And I think I'm remembering this correctly, but I'm not sure. You'll have to double check. I want to say he said it was one death in 80 million miles. Does that sound right?
I don't remember hearing him say it, but I think that's in the ballpark of correct that FSD beta has been driven around 60 million miles, and there may have been one death. I have never heard confirmed that there was a death, and I didn't hear him say anything about it. But I believe there was some indication there was a death, maybe like a FSD tester in China.
Okay.
And I would say it's very clear to me that FSD and even autopilot is, when supervised by a human, is safer than a human without FSD or autopilot. That one's blindingly obvious. I don't think FSD beta has driven on its own enough to be genuinely comparable to a human driver, because you'd have to like let the car go out and drive, like with no one in
Right.
it, to that
Exactly. So
to
maybe
drive
you would
millions of
do a
miles and to drive millions of miles and then compare.
Yeah, so you'd probably do like a big rollout then, right? Warren, wouldn't that be the next step? Let's roll it out and get a huge data set, so we could prove.
Well, no, there's that moment when Tesla says you don't have to pay attention anymore.
Right.
Like maybe we want you to sit in the driver's seat
Hmm.
so that you're ready to take over if the car tells you to, but you don't have to touch the wheel. You don't have to worry about the nag. You can look at your phone, and
Right.
if the car thinks something's going on, it'll beep at you and say, "Hey, take over." That is, I think that's probably a year away. It might be less, it might be more, but about a year away. And when that happens, then we'll really know.
And I hear what you're saying. And I think that that is a judgment call, but that's not a call entirely built on fact. So the fact right now is the data that we have is that FSD is safer than a human. And now they're going to roll out FSD to everybody that has paid for it by the end of the year. And so all of next year, we're going to have all of the cars. Hopefully, people will use their FSD and get those miles. So we can have an enormous data set of FSD miles so that you can prove that FSD is without a doubt safer than a human. Okay. So we can have that data set, we can have those facts. And it is still possible that it will not be passed because people have an emotional reaction to that question to self-driving cars because they'll still say like, well, what if your loved one gets killed by a self-driving car? Well, what if my loved one gets killed by a texting a-hole? Like that happens, but for some reason people have a stronger emotional reaction to a robot car, car-shaped robot, because that's what they are. They are car-shaped robots. They have a stronger emotional reaction to that killing a human than a human killing a human, even though it's the same outcome. So that is an ethical problem that we're having. And there's several other ethical problems that we're having that are costing us human lives because by not allowing full self-drive when we know for a fact that it is safer is costing human lives every day. So here
Yeah,
are some other problems that we're having. Genetics, like gene editing, right? So we have the technology to cure all genetic diseases today using CRISPR Cas9 gene editing. So we can do that. And they do that in some other countries. We do not do it in the United States because we have not solved that ethical dilemma. We do not use stem cells to treat a lot of ailments, even though you can use placental stem cells instead of embryonic stem cells. We don't do placental stem cells either in the United States. There's a lot of things that we're just not having the conversation on. So then we're falling behind as a species, as a country. And so I think that that is going to be a very big issue. And I think we are going to run into an ethical dilemma with the robot at a certain point. And it's exactly what you said, Warren, is that we've already, it's like, it's the same story, just a different item here. It's like at one point, women were property. Like, put me in a different time and I'm chattel,
The
you
good old
know?
days. The good old days.
Good Lord. No, there was no plumbing there. I don't know about that. No air conditioning, no YouTube. How would we know about all these things? But, and then like Black Americans, a lot of them got here because somebody purchased them. That's insane today. Nobody would do that right now, but now it's going to be in vogue again to own a humanoid, like, and they're going to be a lot like us at a certain point. At a certain point, what's going to happen when the robot looks just like me, or better? I mean, what happens when you can make a perfect, quote unquote, perfect human? Will you choose a real human then as your partner? And will you choose robots as your partner? And
Will the robots choose us?
right, exactly. Will they choose us? Will they breed us? I already think that mushrooms are breeding us, though, so that's a whole nother story. That I had DM'd Warren. I think I sent him some strange DM ideas, but yeah. So
Jennifer
the
wants me to date a
question,
mushroom.
huh?
Jennifer wants me to date a mushroom.
No, that would be weird. But coffee, like mining us, is definitely a real thing. But anyways, I digress. So, it's like, when are we going to make decisions on these things? What's going to happen? Like, we don't know. But it is good to talk about, like, when is this going to happen? Is Tesla going to win the robot wars? You hear a lot about some other companies, and people want to point out, oh, how great the optics are for some other companies, how great some of the other robots look, but they are missing a lot of the facts. So I did want to talk about like Tesla's advantages that I think some people are missing,
Well, let's
and
do that. Let's
some.
do that first. Then, what do you see?
Okay.
What do you see as Tesla's advantages? I guess we're talking about Boston Dynamics is the other one that people pay a lot of attention to. If there's others, I'm not sure. But what do you? I
Yeah.
mean, I know what I see as Tesla's advantages. What do you see as Tesla's advantages?
All right. So I have a couple of them that I think maybe you don't know about, which I'm really excited because you got to get up pretty early in the morning if you're going to be Warren to something. Here's the one. Here's two that I think maybe Warren has not caught. The first one you might. Where is Lex Friedman?
He's in
He's
Austin, Texas.
physically in Austin.
Yes.
He is an MIT research scientist, right? He's
Last I
connected.
checked, he was still affiliated with MIT, but I'm not sure that he still is.
I believe he still is. And, MIT will really let most universities, if you are, fantastic associate or whatever of the university, and you're doing good things for university, like if they're making the university look good, you can do whatever you want, and like Lex Friedman makes MIT look good, so they're going to let him do whatever he wants. Well, he is in Austin, and I've heard him make some statements about robots, and he had said, and I'm paraphrasing here, so don't quote me, but he did say some things about Boston Dynamics, that they were not interested so much in making a companion robot or a humanoid robot. They weren't really interested in that. They're interested more in like the manufacturing and stuff like that. And they had too many. Oh, what was it? Like, they were too much about business, not about the robotics and how far you could take it, and how Elon, although Elon is also interested in the manufacturing side of it, I think is more open to it. So I just have been very observant that Lex is physically in Austin, and we know that he is a robotics AI expert. That is very bullish to me for Tesla, and also Tesla. And this you've pointed out before. A lot of people know this. Tesla and SpaceX are the two most sought after companies for engineers. Like, engineers want to work at Tesla and SpaceX. Engineers are not created equal. So talent really is important. Talent matters. They have all the best engineers. So they're going to do the best work. And if you look at what happened at AI Day, what I saw was that Tesla swallowed the frog. They're doing the hard part first. So when you swallow the frog is when you're getting the hard stuff out of the way. Okay. Yeah, the Boston Dynamics Atlas robot looks fantastic. Of course it does. There's a lot of great robots that can move and do perform really well physically. That's already done. And if you have the best engineers in the world, they can reverse engineer that no problem. They're better than everybody else's engineers. What is not done is the AI, is the brain part. And the Boston Dynamics Spot robot is made to be an AI platform. Nobody's made the AI yet. So it's made to plug something into, you know? So, but the one thing that I think you really have not thought about is there's this company. It's called Nano Dimensions. Have you heard of Nano Dimensions? Okay, so they're an Israeli company. Yes, I got something. They are an Israeli company, and they have two very famous clients from my research. You may know them. It's Neuralink and SpaceX. So yeah,
Nano
what does Nano
dimensions.
Dimensions do, huh?
I'm making a mental note. Nano dimensions.
Yeah, the stock's really down too. So they are a 3D printing company. They can make chips using special additive technology. So the way that we manufacture chips right now is a deletive process. So you make like a sandwich of all the components that are in a chip, and then you take away. You kind of like use a laser and cut away at the stuff that you don't need. And they use a different proprietary method where they add to make it. So, but they can also make miniaturized, flexible components that are very lightweight, which is very important in aerospace. So, which is why SpaceX is probably I'm thinking why they're a customer, and Neuralink as well, because you need flexibility, miniaturization, and lightweight. Well, you're
But
going to
just
need that with a robot, a humanoid robot, because not only do you need it to be the size and shape of a human to fit into our world, it has to be roughly the weight of a human. And batteries are heavy. And if you want it to go in an elevator or be able to stand on our floors, it can't be several thousand pounds, even if it is our shape. So Tesla's really, I think, set up well to really iterate and to solve a lot of the major problems of making a humanoid robot. And that's what I saw at AI Day. I thought it was really fantastic that they were teaching the robot already, that's what they're working on, because the walking, the dexterity, the movement, the physical movement, that's going to come in time. But the learning is what's really going to be the hurdle, and that's where Dojo comes in. I think that they have the world's best supercomputer. I think that Elon had kind of hinted towards that, and that's what you need, because really you should be able to take a very large data set and compute power, and at some point, you can put them together and you can get your answer. So to solve for perception robotics, you need an enormous, data set and an enormous compute power. Well, now they do have that enormous compute power. They're working on the data set with the cars. They're nearly finished with that. So now they're working on their robot set, because you kind of add a z-axis when you're with the robot, because I was thinking about it and I was like, oh, you can't really use the occupancy method that they're using with the cars, because the robot is going to have to make decisions about things. Because like for people, cars, it's a go no go. Like they can either be somewhere or not. Like I can be on this road, I cannot be in the grass, right? But for people, it's conditional. Like sometimes I can be in the road, sometimes I can't, sometimes I can be on the grass. And so I think it's gonna be a little more difficult with the robot. It gets a little complicated. Thank God we've got this giant supercomputer. And like Jason DeBolt had pointed out on I want to say he was on Dave Lee's channel.
he was on Dave Lee recently. Yes.
Yeah. So in that episode, he pointed out, he said, they've been working on this since 2008. And he is right. Ever since they started on FSD, they've been working on the robot. So they have this like running start on the robot that I think people aren't really realizing. And they've already made a lot of their mistakes and have fine tuned a lot of it. So they're like a snowball running downhill. And I think that we're just going to see them pick up speed a lot faster than anybody is realizing.
Right. Well, I mean, a couple of things.
Yes.
Number one, what I think we've learned about machine learning much more broadly than bot
Mm-hmm.
or artificial that machine learning, which we think leads to artificial intelligence, that machine learning thrives on a lot of computing power and a lot of data.
Mm-hmm.
And if you throw a lot of data at really strong computing power and you have reasonable algorithms, then you start to be able to train your whatever you're trying to train a machine to do. You're starting to be able to train it. But you have this interesting question. And by the way, artificial intelligence that could potentially become a sentient or deserve rights or become a threat to humans or whatever doesn't have to be in humanoid or car form.
Mm-hmm.
It could be an artificial intelligence that's embodied in the internet, that's
Well, we
embodied on a
already
web
had this
somewhere.
problem at Google because there was the engineer at Google who thought that the AI was sentient and he was freaking out.
Yeah,
And
he
the reason why he was so upset is because he thought it was being mistreated. Like we are having this problem already.
okay, but he I think
I mean, he was wrong.
most people think he overreacted, but there's this question there's two ways of looking at this question. At what point do the machines become as smart or smarter than humans or as or conscious or aware in the same way that humans are? But
Mm-hmm.
another way that people don't like to talk about is how smart are we really? How conscious are we really? Are we really that aware? I mean, have you been to Walmart? I mean, there's a lot of places we go in life where we see people, and there's definitely a lot of people that we interact with who seem with it and thoughtful and so on. But there's also a lot of people who seem to get stuck in ruts, almost
Mm-hmm.
like they got a bad subroutine running, and they
Yeah.
can't like literally just had a conversation today with somebody who was caught in a bad subroutine and can't get out of this subroutine. The other day I was driving. Um, I realized suddenly that my lane was a right turn only lane and I needed to go straight. And I saw an opening in front of a car in the left lane, and I have a Plaid Model X and I can get there. And I got there and I didn't have a better opening, so I seized that opening. And this guy got so mad, he gets out of his car and he walks up toward my car and says, uses some foul language, what the F is wrong with you or something like that. And I just didn't interact. I think there was something wrong with his programming.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, number one, what we should do in that situation is try to put ourselves in the mind of the other person and say, why did they do that? Before you hop out of the car and get ready to start a fight and have the shooting start, maybe you should say, gosh, I've lived here. That lane is a right turn only lane, and there really isn't a lot of maybe that's the reason. Maybe he had a good reason for what he did. And by the way, he not only when I made that move, he accelerated. We're going towards a red light, and he accelerated and
Right.
sort of enforced me like farther into the intersection I wanted to go because I didn't want to get rear-ended.
And just made
Um,
it more dangerous. Like he is a
right,
human that just decided to make the situation more dangerous.
right. But so his programming reaction to this was to be offended and aggressive as opposed to accepting. And I think to some extent we all have moments where, like have you ever driven to work and like realized you just sort of got there, like you drove
Yes.
somewhere and like when you think about it, you're like, I don't really remember driving here. I just got here. Like we have our own internal autopilot sometimes.
Well, it's funny you say that because studies have shown that we automate a lot of things. Our brain likes to make habits. Like the way you put your pants on, you will always put your pants on that way. And so I'll tell you a funny COVID story.
And I'm gonna put my pants on differently next time.
You know what? Do it and it will feel really weird. It's very true. So I was very concerned about my
I think I
husband when
go
he
right
had
leg first. So
COVID.
you're saying if I go left leg first, I'm gonna be confused?
It's gonna feel weird. It's gonna feel really weird. I guarantee you, because your brain automates things. It's how our memory works. Like I listen to a lot of Dr. Andrew Huberman, the
Sure.
Huberman Lab podcast, and he had talked about it because he's a neurobiologist, but Yeah, so we automate things, and there's a lot of research showing that we don't actually make any decisions. Like everything is not predestined, as in there's some magical being that has decided everything, but that we are very predictable.
We're programmed.
Yes,
We're
and
following programming.
we only think that we're making decisions.
Right. So when we
And,
get into this question about rights for
right.
bot and when artificial intelligence will reach a point where we think it deserves rights comparable to the rights that humans have, are we overestimating humans when we have this conversation? Are humans really that special?
Right. Well, what happens if the bots decide we shouldn't have rights anymore because
I was going to get to that.
right, because we don't make decisions because we're like their puppies.
So just really quick for those who aren't familiar with, I don't know if this is where you're going, but there's this concept that there's going to come a point in time where if you think about artificial general intelligence as where we have, let's call it a bot, and at a certain point the bot has the intelligence of a mouse, and then a year later with improved neural net training, the bot now has the intelligence of a dog, and a year later it has the intelligence of a monkey, and then a year later has it's approaching human level intelligence, and the day after it reaches human level intelligence it's smarter than us, and then
Hmm.
it keeps accelerating and keeps getting smarter, and at a certain point, it starts to look at us like we look at monkeys. Then it starts to look at us like we look at dogs. Then it starts to look at us like we look at mice, and then ants. And somewhere in this journey, the AI has to make a decision: are humans a threat or are humans a pet?
Hmm.
And if it thinks we're a threat, it kills us all. And if it thinks we're pets, then maybe it takes us along for the ride.
Right. Or it may farm us like coffee does. So I'm convinced that coffee farms us. I think I sent this to you, Warren, one night. But so here's my quick coffee is farming us. If you think about it, coffee has convinced the humans to dedicate hectares of land that would not have been dedicated to the plant, to dedicate like biologists to optimize the plant so that it grows like larger, better, there's more of it. Like we propagate it. People give their lives to the coffee, like they will dedicate their entire lives to it, to the cultivation, to the brewing the perfect coffee. Starbucks is an enormous company built on coffee, but how are we not sure that the coffee plant did not decide to do this and that we just don't speak coffee plant? Like we are very sure of ourselves that we're the smartest thing in the universe, and maybe we just don't speak plant.
I
Like,
think
has
I
anybody ever considered this? Because they like the
It's in
coffee
Hitchhiker's Guide to the
plant.
Galaxy. Have you read Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Of
Galaxy?
course I have, yes.
The mice.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Earth was created as a computer to answer the question, what's the meaning? Sorry, a computer was created to figure out what the meaning of life was, and the machine
Mhm.
came up with 42. And
Yes.
then Earth was created as a computer to figure out, wait, what was the question we asked that
Hmm.
led to the answer 42?
Hmm.
Um, but in that book also, the lab mice are actually experimenting on the scientists.
Yeah.
They're actually multidimensional beings, and they're pretending to be in the experiment so they can experiment on the scientists. So lots of cool stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
it's fun to
I
think
don't
about
think
stuff like that.
I don't think coffee plants are. I mean, you can make the argument that what was it? John Stossel had this thing about if you want to save an animal species, eat them. Like we eat cows. We have like way more cows than we would have, way more sheep, way
Mhm.
more pigs than we would have,
Yeah.
but we decided to eat them, so now there's a lot more cows and pigs and sheep.
And they're healthier, they're more robust.
Well, they live very fat and comfortable lives. Some of them live fat and comfortable lives. They don't end well for them.
No.
But their species have become very successful. There's a lot more of their species, and their species has become more competitive in certain characteristics, I suppose.
Yeah. And if you look at like we fight wars over land, like it's crazy to me that there's this ground war going on right now and they're blowing up people. Like I watched that drone footage that Elon had posted of that soldier getting blown up. that Ukrainian soldier, like that's heartbreaking that we're fighting over land like this, and it's just land. But if you think about it, think of how much land is dedicated to cattle because we eat them. Like it's a very good
Right.
point you're making. Like
Yeah.
they get a lot more resources because we consume them.
Yeah. I would say, by the way, just on that point about fighting over land, one of the things I think is beautiful about Elon's desire that I'm all in on about, creating a colony on Mars and exploring space
Mhm.
is if we could stop thinking about we're fighting each other over the space here on Earth and start thinking we need to work together to explore all this
Mhm.
space and land that's out there that's an opportunity for humanity to spread into the stars. Like, can we I honestly I feel like this all the time. Like, um there's this dispute between a couple of countries in Eastern Europe slash Asia, whatever you want to call it. Russia, Ukraine. There's a dispute there. There's China and Taiwan. There's, and we're sort of at war with Russia, and we're sort of having a trade war with China. And it's like I don't really worry too much about Russia because I think it's a third world kleptocracy. But I think China is an economic dynamo, and
Mhm.
I would love to see the United States say, "Hey, we can work with these guys. We
Yeah.
don't agree with everything they do. They don't
Mhm.
agree with everything we do,
Mhm.
but." There's a lot of opportunity to work with these guys. And in the Arab world, in Israel, like if Israel and, I think that there's a lot of business done between Israel and the Arab world.
Mhm.
And, if there could be some recognition, hey, this chunk of dirt that we're sitting on isn't really that, the religions say that this chunk of dirt is really important. But when a Muslim's on Mars, which way do they pray to? Where's Mecca?
That's a good question.
And Jews do something similar things like that. Once we're on Mars, like the notion that there's some spot on Earth that's special, like if you're religious, I suppose you can still believe it, but it's going to be awfully hard to like bow towards Mecca or what. Jews do have something similar. I'm Jewish, but I'm not a good Jew. So there's like all and religions just sort of generally have this idea, but I mean, even in Christianity, I think in Christianity and Islam, Jerusalem is a holy place, right?
Mhm.
And other religions, maybe Buddhism or Hinduism have their holy places, but they're just chunks of dirt that have some buildings on them, maybe. But there's so much out there to explore. And could we get everybody on the same page that, hey, listen, we've got a finite amount of time before this rock is no longer good,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of other rocks out there that we could go explore. There's a lot of other land we could develop. There's a lot of other places where we can create lives for ourselves. And how do we get us all on the same page and say, if we all work together on this, we could probably accomplish a lot more than if we start fighting each other over the dirt that's here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it comes down to perception and priority. So, like, what are your priorities? To me, and I had tweeted this out, lands can be regained, but lives cannot. Like, to me, I'm a humanist, like, I'm for the humans. And so I think that saving the human lives is important, is more important than the borders because borders change. They've always changed, they always will change. So, some people will call me a Putin apologist, and I'm not trying to apologize for him at all. I'm saying, can we just like stop killing everybody and maybe talk about things? So that would be like, what's your priorities? And then it's the perception. So, I have been lucky enough to be very successful in life so far. I think it has a lot to do with the way that I perceive the world. I see it as it's not a zero sum game and the tide can rise all boats. So I always take an opportunity to help somebody else. I do run a very large landlord group on Facebook. It's military landlords, so it's a military group, but we help other people learn landlording. We help them out of situations. A lot of times, the first time they're posting is when they're like in a really bad situation as a landlord. But we have a lot of great discussions and stuff. And sometimes people ask me, like, why do you dedicate so much time to this? Like, you're not getting paid, which is true. We don't monetize at all. And because I feel really good helping other military families become financially independent through landlording. People can move through socioeconomic classes that way. And I just think that it's a good thing to do. So I do it. I don't have to do everything for personal gain somehow. I just think people should just do good stuff and good stuff will come to you. Um, that's just my personal philosophy. If everybody thought that way, yeah, we would all be working together.
Yeah.
It would be amazing if we worked with the Chinese because they're killing us in math and science. I was looking up some statistics about education because I have some strong beliefs on education, and we're getting
You
crushed
have
in
strong beliefs on
STEM.
something?
I know, on everything. I know. Yeah, you obviously follow me on Twitter because I'm like, let me tweet something super controversial and let's talk about it. But we have such good conversations though. That's what I really love is that people can have these difficult conversations with respect. And it's just so wonderful to see because there's so many different viewpoints and people have like not agreed and they've been like, you know what? I respect what you're saying. I don't agree with it. We're still going to part friends. Great. But a lot of times we've talked some things out and I've learned some things, so I really like it. But yeah, we're getting slammed in science and math, and I don't love that. I would like us to do better, and if only we could just work together.
Well, I mean, there's something going on there is that in some other countries, education is highly valued, and math and science education is highly valued. And there's some parts, there's certainly some people in America who learn math very well. I push my own kids extremely hard in math, and I'm very pleased that they achieved well in math. But there's a large swath of the population that just doesn't value education, and it's like I'm sorry to say it's really just a cultural thing in America that that people don't value education or math and science education the way that they should, and in China they do. But regardless, we have our strengths; they have their strengths. We can work together. We can achieve certain goals. But let me bring this back to
Yes. Oh yeah, I'll go on a dog leg. Like, so you're gonna have to rein me in sometimes.
okay, so let's bring this back to artificial general intelligence. And
Yes.
let me say this. So I'm gonna define some what I think are reasonable terms.
Mhm.
The software that beat humans at Go or the software that beat humans at chess is what would generally be called artificial narrow intelligence. You identify a task something that humans do that you want machines to do, and you train the machine to do that task, and it becomes like the world's best chess player, but it can't drive a car and it can't think about philosophy. Um, or you design something that can play Go, or you design something that can drive a car, right? And that's what's generally called I mean, I shouldn't say generally. That a term for that is artificial narrow intelligence. It's narrow. It's narrowly focused on a particular thing. Artificial general intelligence. So then there's artificial general intelligence, which is you create an intelligence that's capable of doing a lot of different things, which, the sense is that humans are generally intelligent. Yes, we can learn to do specific tasks, but we can learn to do a lot of specific tasks, and we can learn to think more broadly and philosophically. And so will at some point we create an artificial intelligence that is able to do a variety of things and able to think on a higher level, which I think there's this question: do all humans think at a higher level? Is it some humans that think at a higher level? There's a whole, you can get really elitist about that. And then artificial superintelligence is when the artificial general intelligence becomes smarter than human. And when it
Okay.
becomes smarter than human, at some point, this question about what kind of what you said, it's not going to be about whether we give the AI rights. It's whether the AI recognizes that we have rights. So
Mhm.
that's a pretty interesting challenge that we're going to face. When we look at FSD and now bot, what we're seeing that Elon has said is a step towards artificial general intelligence is real world AI. That the software, the bot or the car, whatever, is able to perceive the world in a way that machines probably didn't perceive the world before. It's able
Mhm.
to identify objects. It's able to make predictions about what objects are going to do. It's able to, and with the case of bot, it's able to manipulate objects. Like the car doesn't really. The car is able to navigate the space to avoid colliding with the objects, and bot similarly can navigate space and avoid running into things. But then the next level, which bot is taking that the car doesn't really do, is manipulating objects.
Mhm.
Can you pick up this object and put it over there? I mean, to some extent, FSD beta will wipe the windshield. But that's not really the same thing. So being able to identify an object, pick it up, move it, I think that bot is going to extend this navigating space idea and understanding the real world And there's just sort of this question, which I don't know the answer to. I don't know if anybody knows the answer to. At what point does it cross over from being able to do tasks to having some form of general intelligence that's comparable to human intelligence? And to answer that, we really need to know what human is. But what are your thoughts on what do we need to see from AI or bots or the cars to make us think, hey, this is doing something more than just narrow tasks?
Well, I think what's going to happen is, well, the bot is already it's already manufacturing, it's already on the line in Fremont. So that's very exciting. And we already have robots that are doing complex tasks like surgery. We have robots that do surgery. Um, I don't know if they're entirely doing surgery by themselves. So I do believe that surgeons are manipulating them. But I think what will happen is that we will have specific programs. So when bot does come out for consumers, I this is what I think will happen. And this is why I think we're all going to be really, really rich if you own Tesla stock. Not financial advice, but imagine like Microsoft. You know, like the Office suite that you have to subscribe to, and they're getting all those royalties. I think we're going to have to subscribe to certain packages. So you could subscribe to maybe Cleaning Bot, you know. So I think in the beginning, bots can have certain tasks that might be more menial that it will be able to do. So the bot's going to be able to like maybe wash dishes and vacuum and fold laundry. Definitely fold laundry. There's already a laundry folding bot. Google it. And so, you know, so it'll be able to do those things. You'll have to subscribe. But then maybe you want it to do your landscaping. So then you can add, oh, well, I want to add landscaping, subscribe to that. But now, what if you have some tasks around your house that you would normally hire somebody to do? Like you want some interior walls painted. What if you could go into your bot app and you could hire your bot to paint your walls? Because the bot should be able to, at some point, import any of those programs into itself. So it can become a proxy person, almost any person.
Let me
And
just pause you for a second and give people some the way I think this happens, right? So
mhm,
right now the bot is learning to walk and it is
mhm,
learning to pick up and move objects. The
mhm.
perception that a lot of us have is that we're going to identify other tasks that humans do. One of my favorites is installing solar roof tiles or in roofing work. We're going to
Okay.
identify things that humans do that are, in Elon's words, dangerous, repetitive, and or boring. I would say repetitive and boring. We don't do a lot of dangerous stuff anymore. We do a lot of repetitive and boring stuff.
Mhm,
And if we can identify tasks that humans do that's repetitive and boring, and we can get trained bot to do these repetitive and boring tasks, and remember they're repetitive and
mhm,
they're boring, so they should be trainable.
mhm.
Then over time, bot, whether it's downloadable software or it's just built into every bot, becomes capable of more and more things that it can do.
Right.
And
So,
that's and then the question just we cross that question again. At what point? How would we identify a moment where the bot is capable of doing so much that we start to think, hey, this is more than just doing ordinary tasks? There's some higher level thought going on here. This is one of those things like we don't. Do we really have like I can have thoughts in my head? What's a
mhm.
just society? What if what if we traveled into space? How would we can analyze um, we can model things like, well, what's likely to happen with Tesla stock if they produce this many batteries and they make this much money per kilowatt hour of batteries, right? That's sort of arguably higher reasoning.
So
Is there a
you're
moment when
talking
bot starts to
about,
do? Is there a moment when bot starts to do higher reasoning?
right. So you're referencing the Turing test. So when a human cannot tell the
Maybe.
difference between a human and a robot, basically, because well, the Turing test deals with like chatbots, basically. So if you have a chatbot, can a human determine am I talking to a human or am I talking to a chatbot? Right, and that's the Turing test. And if you can't tell the difference, then the chatbot has passed the Turing test. We can almost do that with chatbots now. So I think that what will happen is our computing capabilities are growing every year. So you can't really think of it in terms of what we can do today because it will change. So while they are working on the platform of the robot, and I think you're right, I think that before they put the bots in the home, like I am a little ahead of the game on that, there will be like this half step where it's between the factories and the home. So boring, repetitive tasks like you named, like roofing, but also what about mail delivery? Like our government could get. I love my mail carrier, Barry. We went to high school together. So that's how like old home it is here for me. It's so funny. So he's fantastic. Barry might get replaced though, because like a robot could do that. They could be driving around a little mail cart and putting mail in everybody's mailboxes. So now if the United States government though could save on all the on the cost of postal workers, let's say, right? Not by firing all the postal workers, but by as people retire, not putting those jobs out for hire, but putting in robots, right? Because it would not be good to just be firing a bunch of people and then putting robots in. That's not good. Let's not do that. But just not new hiring, right?
I'm okay with firing people.
I don't know if I love that, but we'll see. I don't think there's going to be so many robots that we're just going to be mass firing people. Maybe there
No, the
is,
problem is that politicians won't fire people who do government jobs. Politicians want
right?
more government jobs, not less government jobs. Republicans and Democrats both, they just love creating government jobs. This is libertarian speaking.
Right. And I as well am a libertarian. I do not love government spending. I would like us to spend less. So I'm like, let's save money with bots. And here's something that I think people aren't really thinking of. How is this going to change our society? How can it change our society? If we recapture that revenue, we can either lower taxes so that you don't have to make as much money, or we could take that money and we could reallocate it so we could spend more on, say, police, so that we could do better training, we could offer higher wages so that we get better candidates, and then we could start solving maybe some issues that we have in law enforcement. I love law enforcement. I think they have a very hard job, but I think that everybody is in agreement that if we paid them more and had better training, that hopefully we would have better outcomes. I don't know a lot of his society issues, but that is one thing that could happen with bot. Like nobody wants robot cops. That's scary. Like that is Orson Welles
Wait,
1982, like or
wait,
1984.
wait.
Like
Let
let's
me
not do
see if I
that.
got this straight. We don't want cops that follow their training.
No, actually, no, because I think police officers, I think, make a lot of judgment calls. If you think about it, they do.
Okay, so
There's a
I don't know if you know I was a criminal defense lawyer and I've cross-examined a lot of police officers, and I would
yeah.
say that the average police captain, his greatest fear is that a cop will think for himself instead of following his training.
I know. I know. But I think that like a compassion comes into play sometimes. I think that sometimes humans get tired. I'm not even saying that like they make a judgment call, whereas they're so when I'm saying judgment call is that they're deciding not to like arrest that young person that made a bad decision where there is actually not a real victim, like they're the only
Yeah,
victim
when
type of
that,
thing.
but when that compassion comes into play, when the cop identifies with that particular subject who might
Mhm,
be white, and they
mhm.
don't feel the same feeling when they're confronting a young black man, and so you end up with a racist system because the cops might favor white people because they feel more compassion for white people, and robots would probably be more even-handed in dealing with justice issues.
Oh, okay. So that is a very valid point. I like that. Well, what I was also thinking about is like, what if you have a police officer that is having a bad day? They're having
They have bad
some
days.
problems at home. They make a bad call, a bad
No.
judgment call or something, like also that. So
Yeah,
I don't, yeah,
maybe we shouldn't be giving guns and badges to men who have a really high divorce rate.
that's fair. Yeah. So,
Police have high divorce. For those who don't know, police have high divorce rates.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, military too. So it's because it's very high stress jobs. I mean, in all fairness, but so
What's the low stress job? I love
massage
when people say
therapist.
that. What's the low stress job out there that I'm missing? That people have this idea that there's somehow that job is hard. Where's the easy jobs? Because I want
Massage
to sign up for the
therapist.
easy job. I want to sign up for the easy low stress job that pays a lot of money. Where do I get that one?
Lauren, massage therapist. So I was in real estate, in like high stakes real estate. I was a agent for Douglas Elliman, right, in New York. So Right. And then I just got really stressed out and I was on the massage table one day. I want to say I was in mortgage at this point. And I was laying there and I was like, this lady's got the life. Like she is the greatest job ever. Everybody's happy to see. No one is mad when they see their massage therapist. Everyone loves their massage therapist. And I was like, I should do this. This is a good job. And that is when I put myself through massage school after university. Like I did it backwards. And it was a great decision.
So you're saying I should go to massage school and then
I don't know. That's why I did it though. I was like, I want the low stress job. And also, it's very active. So I wasn't
but
sitting in a
aren't the
desk.
bots going to take over those jobs? Because won't the bots
Yes,
ultimately be better at massage?
I can't wait. I want to train the bot. I'm like, put sensors on me. I will teach it. I don't care. That will be fantastic. I want that bot. That's why I got into teaching massage was because I just wanted to make more massage therapists in my image. I was like, we got to get more really good massage therapists. I'll teach them. But
Right.
anyway, so yeah, back to bot.
So the question is, what is special about humans that led us to believe that humans should have human rights? And then what would we what would we need to see from bots or artificial general intelligence that would make us feel the same way about them?
I don't know. I think it's going to come down to what our society perceives at the time and just our technological abilities and our societal perceptions just crossing at the right time. Because I think we're special because we have an ego that thinks we're special. I don't really know if there's anything that's that special about humans. We are hairless monkeys in clothes,
Well, I am
really.
hairless. You're not hairless.
No, I have so much hair. I'm making up for the hair, just like Elon makes up for all of the children that
No,
some
but
people don't have.
I'm going to take an extreme position for a second.
Sure.
I've never been known for this. But the artificial intelligence is machines.
Yes.
It's not biological. Um, they
Yeah.
don't really have feelings. We might program them to have feelings, but they don't really have feelings. They don't really experience pain. One of the most common features of human existence and possibly a large share of animal existence is that we experience suffering, and that a
Hmm.
lot of what we do is to minimize suffering, avoid suffering, and maybe to find joy. Um, I don't think that anything we're developing in terms of bots at this point will experience suffering or experience joy. That they are machines that are.
Program it to do that though. You could definitely code a
No,
program to avoid
it's
things
not.
that are perceived as negative, which is
No,
what
we
we
we do. That is the fundamental programming is to minimize an objective function, right? Minimize the
do.
probability of crash, for
Yeah.
example. But what I'm saying is, even if we program it to pretend it experiences suffering or joy, it doesn't really experience suffering or joy. It's a machine. It's bits and it's hardware. It's not biological. And I there now. I mean, there's an alternative. The alternative is really dark. If you start to say, well, maybe humans don't have are just organic machines, and we don't really experience joy and suffering either. We just think we do. But you can really go down a dark path and say, well, humans shouldn't have rights either.
It's a blend, kind of. I'm not saying humans shouldn't have rights or that we're entirely machines, but we do have feelings. However, they can be mitigated because it's all just chemical reactions. Like if you are depressed,
Oh, we
there
can we
are
can medicate
chemicals.
ourselves and take the feelings away.
It's true though. It is true. And there's some fantastic studies lately coming out of John Hopkins University with psychedelics and PTSD. So let's just take because these are some really great studies. They've done some functional MRIs of people who have PTSD. And what is one of the markers is that you have reduced activity in the frontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that identifies if something is dangerous or a friend, like friend or foe, right? And so if
Sorry,
you have,
just really quick for people to understand, the functional MRI is you're in an MRI machine, which is looking at the brain in this case. And as you're thinking about certain things or doing certain things, different parts of your brain light up on the functional MRI, and they're able to say, okay, this is what happens in the brain when you do this or when you think this,
yes,
right?
yeah, it's visualization, images of the brain while it's working. So, so in PTSD, two things are kind of happening. The frontal cortex is not working as well, and that's the friend or foe part. And then the amygdala, which is your fear response area, is over stimulated. That so when you see like the hypervigilance in somebody that has PTSD, like they always have to see the exits and entrances, and they always seem like really amped up. That's where that's coming from, is because their brain works like that, that they perceive everything as a threat, and they're always in that fight or flight response mode, right? Now, when you treat with like high dose MDMA, which is a psychedelic, like ayahuasca or something like that, that's what's in it is MDMA. Then they do the functional MRIs again, and they can see that all of that has been rebalanced and that you no longer have an overactive amygdala and an underactive frontal cortex. It has been fixed. That is phenomenal.
Okay.
So I don't know. We can't. So we're a little bit of a biological computer in that we can change our programming a little bit. And, even through like biofeedback therapy and stuff like that, people can have different perceptions of things that have happened. Say if you've had trauma in the past, you can reframe that trauma in with therapy so that you look at it in a different way. Two people could experience the same event and have very different outlooks on that event.
Okay.
And
That's
that
the
would
Japanese
just be
movie.
our programming.
That's the Kurosawa movie Rashomon. 7 different people see an event 7 different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are you looking for in artificial intelligence or bot or the cars to suggest to you that there's something? What are some things that we would see that would suggest to you or should suggest to us something special is happening here? This is more than just a machine now.
When they make the companion robots, when they start being companions, even just in the beginning of companionship, when it's just like my buddy robot. Like, do you remember the Teddy Ruxpin robots?
Yes.
Yeah, that you put the little cassette tape in and it would tell you the story.
You're giving me an idea here.
Huh.
Let me just interrupt you. Maybe we don't need an objective definition of when AI achieves that level. Maybe we need a definition when enough humans decide. It's almost like a democratic decision. When enough humans are persuaded, hey, this is real, this is something special.
Mhm.
I don't know. I would prefer an objective standard, but I don't think we have an objective standard for human intelligence that much either, or human
Humans aren't
awareness or human
objective.
consciousness. Right.
Humans are.
Well,
We're not.
so what? I'm sorry. So what do you see? What do you see that's going to like flip the switch? How do we decide when it's time to give them rights, and what rights do we give them?
That is a very complicated question. I'm not really sure. Unfortunately, I think it's going to happen sooner than I want it to. And I know this is going to sound terrible, but I was really looking forward to owning a robot and it doing stuff for me.
Me
And when
too.
I realized, because at first, my first reaction was like, yay, I get a robot. It's going to do all this stuff for me and I won't have to like hire people and it'll be fantastic. And then I realized it's slavery. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. And because slavery is wrong. We all know that. And I was like, but it's not a human. I was like, oh, but some people are going to think it's a human because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to marry their robots. That's going to start. When are people going to start marrying the robots?
Just want to put in here. I'm not planning on marrying a robot. I do want
I know.
bots.
Well, no, you won't even marry somebody over 40. So, of course, a robot is not going to, they
I
don't
might
know
flex
women.
on. I might flex on that.
Okay. All right. But they still don't, you still can't have a baby with a robot, though. Not
Probably
yet.
not. Not yet.
Not yet. I think they're working on that,
Well, there's
though.
actually an interesting question. Like when a man mates with a woman,
Mhm.
their DNA combines in some way, and a new human is created, and that new human, like Grimes described having children as raising children as watching consciousness emerge. So I have
Mhm.
2 kids, and my DNA was combined with my now ex-wife's DNA, and these 2 children grew up, and they have their own ideas, and they think about things differently. It's pretty cool. Is it conceivable that AI that there's going to be some sort of AGI, and like AGI figures out a way that it can mate and spawn new artificial intelligence entities? Maybe I don't see that happening. But I mean, I wonder if I mean you can take another step and say we talked about Neuralink earlier. I don't know
Hmm.
if we were recording when we talked about Neuralink earlier, but there's a view that at some point Neuralink might be able to copy our minds, put our minds in the cloud, and maybe then move our minds down or copies of our mind down onto like a bot.
Hmm.
And there could be you could create 100 of you. You could like upload your consciousness, your mind, and then you could have your mind put on 100 bots or 1,000 bots. 1,000 Warrens would be that would be disturbing for society. But if that's true, if we are able to upload our consciousness and download our consciousness, then is there a way of mating? And now we're not doing AGI. We're doing humans that have been put up into like a cloud. Like, does if you copy my consciousness and put it in the cloud, does my consciousness in the cloud have rights? When you download my consciousness to a bot, does the bot now have rights because it's got a human consciousness in it? And what if there's 100 of me? Do all my bots have the same rights that I do? Or do they have the same
Right.
rights as each other? There's a lot of different curveballs you can throw at this problem. And I think fundamentally, we don't really have a good grip on what it means to be human, what it means to be conscious, what it means to be sentient, what it means to be thinking. We don't really have a good grip on all this stuff.
I agree with
Am I?
you. And you're asking one of my favorite questions because I feel like I realized something recently. Not all humans, well, of course, not all humans have the same rights, but and that's very unfortunate. But I think in my mind, there are really worldwide only three classes. Follow me on this one. And
Uh-oh, it sounds dangerous.
they can be determined by how certain SEC rules apply to you. So follow me on this. There is the ruling elite, right? They run the world and they're untouchable. So, like the insider trading laws, right? They don't apply. Like, they don't get busted for it. They can just break those laws, just left, right, and center. I'm talking about Paul Pelosi, and like nothing happens. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
just so the audience knows, it is legal for members of Congress to trade on inside information. It is
Yeah.
not legal for anyone else to do so, but when they made insider trading illegal, they effectively made an exemption for members of Congress. So members of Congress will get inside information about what's going on with the company, and then they'll buy stock in that company or they'll sell stock in that company, and that is legal in the United States. Even though I think we both agree that sounds awfully unethical.
It's ridiculous. It is the rules are for thee and not for me. It is
Yeah.
the ruling elite. It's the billionaires that you don't know about. They're not on Forbes list because they don't want to be on anybody's list. They run everything. Okay. So that's the ruling elite. That's the top class. Okay. Then we have what I like to call the new middle class. They are the billionaires. All right. They're Martha Stewart and Elon. They're having a great time. They're really, really rich, but they will still get thrown into fancy prison if they step out of line. There are certain standards that they're held to, and they will be punished if they don't toe the line, but they still get certain privileges. So they're like kind of in this strange gray area. And I have to say, personally, I love me some billionaires. They make a lot of things for society. We would not have like the American railway system. We would not have Standard Oil. We would not have international shipping. There's a lot of stuff that we would not have. I mean, we wouldn't have like flight if not for billionaires. They're super important. So I wish people would not hate on billionaires. I think they're fantastic. So, but that is our middle class, right? So then everybody else who is not a billionaire is proletariat.
We're,
Okay.
we're
We
the
are the
great unwashed.
working. Huh?
$100 million doesn't make you special anymore.
No, unfortunately, which really sucks. But we are the proletariat, okay? We don't even get to play. Like we insider trading does not apply to us because we don't get any insider information. So the middle class will get busted on insider trading. The upper class is exempt because the rules are for thee and not for me. And then we don't even get to play. And that's it. That's all you need to know. Those are the
Okay.
only classes. They span every geographical region, all continents. That's it.
Okay, so I'm trying to wrap my head around all this, and I think you've overwhelmed my brain.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I need my brain. The brain muscle needs to be exercised as well. And we've been
Hmm.
going for about an hour and 20 minutes, or maybe about an hour.
Yeah. Oh God, there was a ton of other stuff that I had
So,
too, but it's okay.
so let's take a break now, and
Okay.
then maybe we'll come back and do another one of these in the future.
Sure.
But I wanted to thank you for coming on, Jennifer Strahan. Anything? I'm going to put a link to your Twitter in the
Mhm.
description below. Is there anything else I should share with the audience?
No, not at this time. I'm just kind of on Twitter doing my thing. Please follow. I will follow them back and like this video.
Please support this channel on the Locals platform on Patreon or as a YouTube channel member. Please check out my other videos. Please check
Mhm.
out my t-shirts at elonbits.com, including the Make Babies Not Bombs t-shirt coming soon. Please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.